is important. When the Chancellor made that promise to unfreeze the thresholds, it wasn't an off-the-cuff comment. She said it on the floor of this House in her budget speech. That was a deliberate statement of government policy. So if she breaks such a clear promise, how can the public trust a word that she says next week?
Mr. Speaker, she talks about inflation. It went to 11% or more. 11%. And the country is still paying the price. Inflation is down this morning. Wages are up, and we've had 5 interest rate cuts, and that's because our fiscal rules are ironclad. And the leader of the opposition and the party of us have no credibility on the economy. She was Treasury Minister during the worst decline in living standards on record. And she said that Liz Truss got the mini budget 100% right. Not much room for flexibility there. 100%, that's pretty full marks, Mr. Speaker. She might want to tell us if that's still her position, 100% right for Liz Truss.
Mr. Speaker, I was Treasury Minister at the height of the pandemic. We cleaned up that mess. Maybe he could clean up some of his own mess. And I'm going to repeat what the Chancellor said, because it's quite clear that the whole front bench has forgotten. She said, I have come to the conclusion that extending the threshold freeze would hurt working people. It would take more money out of their pay slips, and yet that's what they're planning to do next week. And all of this speculation is having real-world consequences. Just this morning, the UK chair of ExxonMobil said, and I quote, the government needs to understand that the whole industrial base of the UK is at risk unless they wake up and realise the damage their economic policies are doing. Mr. Speaker, can the Prime Minister tell us, is the loss of UK industry the price the country has to pay for having a clueless Chancellor?
Mr. Speaker, let me just say about ExxonMobil, it is a difficult time for the workforce there, and we must focus on supporting them. We've been meeting the company for over 6 months and explored every possible reasonable avenue. They've been facing losses for the last 5 years. It's best to do the detail before you chunter. And they're currently losing £1 million a week. But she talks about policy and approach. On energy policy, she follows reform. On the European Convention, she follows the man who wants her job. And when her shadow minister said we should deport people lawfully here to achieve cultural coherence, she pretended that it didn't happen. I could go on. She was the trade secretary that didn't sign any trade deals. Cheerleader for the mini budget, cheerleader for open borders, and when they were crashing the economy, botching Brexit and running down the NHS, she was right at the centre. She hasn't got an ounce of credibility.
Mr. Speaker, on energy policy, what we are doing is listening to industry. What happened, I had a round table.
Mr. Slinger, please. We don't want to have to sling you out.
Mr. Speaker, just this morning, we heard from the chair of one of our largest energy companies. Last week, I had a roundtable with energy companies, and what they had to say about this Prime Minister and his energy secretary is unprintable. They are absolutely furious. Our oil and gas industry is dying, and he's standing there saying he had meetings. People out there are struggling, Mr. Speaker. The budget chaos is causing real anxiety. People aren't buying houses, businesses aren't hiring, and they are cancelling investment decisions. 2 weeks ago, the Chancellor called a ridiculous press conference to blame everyone else for her having to raise income tax. Then last week, she U-turned on her own U-turn. Instead, we can see they're planning to freeze income tax thresholds, something she said last year would be a breach of their manifesto. They are making it up as they go along. Doesn't the country deserve better than government by guesswork?
Either we renew our country with Labour or we go back to austerity 2.0 with reform of the Tories. They left waiting lists at record highs, almost 1 million more children in poverty, and they wrecked our public services. She comes here to talk down the country. We're turning the page. More NHS appointments, free breakfast clubs, free childcare, more homes and better public services. That's what we're fighting for, a Britain built for all.
Lord Hatton.
Mr. Speaker, standing in the heart of Weymouth, the Rectory is an iconic building. formerly a theatre, once a bustling cinema, and then a popular pub as well. And yet for more than a decade, this building has stood empty. We want to turn this building into a thriving centre for arts and culture, hosting exhibitions and celebrating everything that makes Weymouth unique. So will the Prime Minister work with me and all the key players on the ground to revitalise the rectory and reopen this fantastic building for our town?
Prime Minister.
Well, my honourable friend is a brilliant champion for South Dorset, and he's right to champion revitalising our high streets. The Minister for Heritage would be delighted to discuss how we can get this iconic building reopened as he wants. I'm pleased that Weymouth secured £20 million in Pride in Place funding, giving his community the power and resources to make a real difference to people's lives.
Sir David, Leader of the Liberal Democrats.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I associate myself with the Prime Minister's opening remarks? And can I also join with him in congratulating Scotland on their amazing win against Denmark and wish them well in the World Cup? And can I also say I hope Wales soon qualifies to join England and Scotland. But Mr. Speaker, every year there are more than 300 suicides related to problem gambling. It affects hundreds of thousands of families, tearing them apart. Meanwhile, online gambling firms are taking in record revenues of over £7 billion a year. Now, ITV News are reporting that one of them, Sky Bet, is moving its headquarters to Malta so it can save tens of millions of pounds in corporation tax. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that it's time that we tax them on their UK profits so these online gambling firms don't escape wherever they are registered for tax?
Prime Minister.
But can I join him on wishing Wales well and Northern Ireland? I'd like to see all four nations in the finals. But look, he raises the really important issue of suicide, and it's Men's Health Day, and it is really important. And I think the whole House would want to work together on anything that can prevent suicide. I think if all of us think about individuals we may know who lost their lives through suicide, it's something that touches almost every one of us and all of our families as well. We will, of course, look at the link between suicide and gambling and take whatever measures we can to reduce suicide. It's a very important issue.
Sir David.
For his reply, we look forward to the government coming forward with action on that. On another domestic matter, Mr. Speaker, next to the River Cherwell in Oxfordshire, a field is now covered in an enormous mound of rubbish, 150 metres long and up to 12 metres high. The water is now lapping against the waste and carrying it into the river. It's just one of many sites, Mr. Speaker, where organised criminal gangs are illegally dumping their waste onto our countryside and getting away with it. This is a shocking environmental emergency. So will he instruct the Environment Agency to clean it up now?
Well, firstly, these are utterly appalling scenes, utterly appalling. A criminal investigation, as he knows, is underway. And specialist officers are tracking down those responsible. The Environmental Agency, in answer to his question, will use all available powers to make sure that the perpetrators cover the cost of the clean-up, which must now follow. We have boosted the Environment Agency's budget for tackling waste crime by 50%, given councils new powers to seize and crush fly tippers' vehicles, and lawbreakers can now face up to 5 years in jail.
Dominic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Immigration is the #1 issue on doorsteps of Bristol North East. Most people will ask me about it. They want a firm, but also a fair approach, but have been let down over many years. Controlling our borders and knowing who comes is essential, not least to integration. Mr. Speaker, what can the Prime Minister say to my constituents in Bristol North East that will give them assurance that the reforms that the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary are proposing, which I support, will be firm, but will also be fair?
Prime Minister.
I'm proud, Mr. Speaker, to lead an open, tolerant, generous country. To maintain that principle, we must restore order and control, fix the utterly broken system left by the party opposite and end the division that others seek to exploit. That does include creating safe and legal routes, recognising those who contribute, integrate and strengthen our society, while at the same time reducing illegal arrivals and removing those with no right to be here. That is a fair, progressive system that meets modern challenges.
Jim Ellison.
Mr. Speaker, the governments of France, Germany and the United States have all extracted from Libya compensation for their citizens who were affected by Gaddafi-led terrorism across the world. Why, Prime Minister, is the British government continuing to fail United Kingdom citizens who suffered to a huge extent through the importation of arms and, in particular, the tons of Semtex that Gaddafi supplied to the IRA, giving rise to Enniskillen, to Warrington, to the Baltic Exchange and multiple others? Why is no compensation being extracted from Libya for our citizens when it can be done for others? And will the Prime Minister at least meet representatives of the almost forgotten but still campaigning families for those affected by Gaddafi's terrorism?
Well,
Prime Minister.
so many suffer from Gaddafi, and he's absolutely right to raise this really serious issue, and we're working hard on it. I'll absolutely make sure that the meeting he asks for is set up with the relevant minister so that we can give the full position and take on board what they have to say.
Luke Charters.
On International Men's Day and in the spirit of Movember, I want to be open about my own past mental health challenges in the hope that it might encourage other men to do the same. And during the traumatic birth of my first son, I nearly lost my wife and a dark cloud settled over me. A cloud lifted through conversation and support and through the safe arrival of my second son, and bright days lie ahead. I'm joined in the gallery today by Mike from York Menfulness, a fantastic charity giving men a place to talk. So will the Prime Minister, as a dad himself, agree with me that strength as a man means being open about our emotions and that we should never face into challenges on our own?
Can I thank him for his honesty? It's never easy to stand up and say what he's just said. And I hope he understands just how important that is for others who will be suffering, who will be inspired to be able to talk openly about their experiences and importantly get the help that they need. I'm really proud to publish the first ever men's health strategy today to tackle challenges that disproportionately affect men, including certain cancers and suicide, which is tragically the biggest killer of those men under 50. So we will invest millions in helping more men access mental health support, better care for former minors, and rolling out at-home blood tests to tackle prostate cancer. But I do thank him for speaking out. I think it's so important, it's so brave. It's been done across the House. This isn't a party political issue, but it's always very powerful when it's done, and it's a model for all of us.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Given the government's desire to improve educational outcomes and the well-being of our children, it is ignoring the elephant in the room. This morning I hosted a really powerful roundtable with 3 secondary head teachers who spoke about the transformational effect that a complete ban on smartphones in their schools had had.
If I could extract it from the pot, I'd happily serve it at a dinner party.
And most importantly, happier children. But for them it has been really hard won and it's sunk a huge amount of time. So will the Prime Minister tell me and the thousands of head teachers out there who are crying out for this change why his government won't back them with a ban on smartphones in schools?
Prime Minister.
I thank her for a question. It's a really important question. I've got teenage children in secondary school, and I know it's an issue of concern to parents and teachers. The reality of the statistics are that the vast majority of schools already ban smartphones at school. They allow children to bring their phones to schools, but they ban them in school time in lessons. Of course, we will always keep this under review. We've got to take steps that will be effective. I agree with the sentiment of what she's putting to me. We need to deal with it effectively.
Andrew Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. one of the worst legacies of the last Conservative government was the collapse in apprenticeships for young people in places such as Peterborough, shutting a generation out of opportunity. Mr. Speaker, my city is determined to turn that around, with places like Peterborough College, like many of our colleges, leading the charge. Whilst I welcome the government's reform, I still speak to too many young people who can't access the training they need to rebuild Britain. Will the Prime Minister set out what more we can do together to ensure Peterborough's young people get the good jobs and apprenticeships they deserve?
Prime Minister.
Well, I thank him. His dedicated campaign means Peterborough has one of the first youth guarantee pilots in the country. Mr. Speaker, we inherited an awful situation where almost 1 million young people were not earning or learning. We refuse to accept that. That's why we're delivering the new youth guarantee, investing a record £3 billion into apprenticeships and increasing the national minimum wage for 16 to 20-year-olds. The Reform and the Tories say the minimum wage is too high. They're totally wrong. We're going to focus on every young person to give them the chance to succeed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Whilst the Labour front bench continue to peddle their own form of dog whistle politics, Reform UK... Reform UK are cracking on with the day job. Our reform-led councils are reformed.
Could just say, you might say it's the way he tells them, but it might be worse, it's the way I tell them. Lee Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our reform-led councils have already identified savings of over £330 million in the first 6 months. And the Prime Minister may shake his head propped up by these gullible backbenchers, but here's the challenge. Will he guarantee, will he ensure that all the cancelled elections from this year and the proposed local elections for next year will go ahead in May 2026? Go on, be a man.
I didn't realise this was quite so good at stand-up comedy. Mr. Speaker, he talks about dog whistle. Last week, his leader said he didn't have time to condemn the racist comments of his fellow MP for Runcorn. He also said he didn't have time to condemn his party calling children in care evil. He didn't have time. I wonder if we can ask his leader next door to him whether he's got time for his explanation for the stories in today's papers.
Mr. Speaker, over the summer, large quantities of illegal cigarettes were seized in shops in my Carlisle constituency. However, many of those shops were reopened the very next day. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that we have to make it easier for these shops to be closed down permanently so we put out of business forever these criminal networks?
Prime Minister. Can I thank her for raising this? Because there's been a surge in response to illegal shops selling products they shouldn't be selling and not paying their taxes. It's very important. Raids in October, Mr. Speaker, saw over 900 arrests, almost £11 million of criminal profits were seized, and almost £3 million of illegal gear was destroyed. We need to go further to protect our high streets. That's why we're giving councils powers to prevent certain shops from even opening, supporting them to deal with unwanted shops, and through the tobacco and vapes bill, cracking down on rogue retailers who break the law.
Josh Bradbury.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Eastbourne resident Pam was given a cheque for £125,000 by her terminally ill partner, which she went on to cash in. But an error by the bank, Barclays, meant that only £125 was deposited. Barclays admitted the error and then said that they will compensate her for £250 for the inconvenience caused.
What?
Will the Prime Minister work with me to ensure that Barclays Bank pays Pam the compensation that she needs and deserves? And while we're here, will he commit to imposing a windfall tax on the banks like Barclays on their excess profits to bring bills down for residents struggling? Prime Minister.
The case of his constituent Pam is staggeringly bad, absolutely terrible. If he could provide me with the full details of it, I will make sure that the government joins him in doing whatever we can in relation to his constituent. And before I sit down, may I take a moment to send my warmest congratulations to the honourable member on getting engaged, I think, on Thursday, The proposal, I think, was right here in Parliament. You never know what you might find in this dispatch box. But on behalf of my party, and actually I'm sure the whole House, can I wish him and Connor a lifetime of happiness.
Connor Naismith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Crewe Railway Station is the gateway to the north and indeed the shop window for my constituency, with an average annual footfall of 4.5 million people. I am working with Cheshire East Council on ambitious plans for Crewe 360 to deliver much needed investment into the station and into the land around the station, and we want to adopt the Railway Industry Association's Station Investment Zone proposals, which could deliver much needed improvements in transport, housing, regeneration and economic growth. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that Crewe would make a perfect pilot for these proposals, and will he agree to work with me to bring government departments around the table so that we can make these plans a reality?
Well, I thank him for his question. Because of our actions, Mr. Speaker, house building near stations like Crewe will now be a default yes. That means tens of thousands of homes delivered far sooner for families with great transport links as standard. I'll make sure that he meets the relevant ministers to drive forward growth. Every step we've taken to deliver more homes has been opposed by the parties opposite. They're the blockers, Labour are the builders.
James McMurdo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is an open secret that the gig economy is a magnet for organised crime and illegal workers. As Christmas approaches and demand increases, so do the associated risks. Will the Prime Minister please explain why enforcement in this area is so low and what he will do to restore order?
Well, we're delivering a record crackdown on illegal working in the gig economy, expanding the right to work and facial recognition checks, which are really important. We're also introducing a new criminal offence of trespassing with intent to commit a crime through the Place and Criming Bill.
Mr. Coteau.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Based on the reactions care or remember that every day I see the cost to my constituents in Bournemouth West of years of cuts to public services. Youth services gone, neighbourhood policing decimated, no NHS dentist appointments. So can the Prime Minister confirm there will be no return to austerity under this Labour government?
I certainly can. The austerity that they imposed on the country destroyed our public services, and we're still paying the price. We'll be cutting waiting lists, cutting the debt and cutting the cost of living. Fair choices to secure Britain's future, not a return to the failure of the party opposite.
Jack Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister has expressed sincere regret for appointing David Cogan to the Independent Football Regulator. Will he now put on record the full amount Mr. Cogan has donated to his leadership campaign and his party, any hospitality he's received, and whether he declared these interests before appointing him?
Prime Minister.
They were all declared properly.
Not the amount.
Mr. Speaker, this Friday we commemorate the 51st anniversary of the Birmingham pub bombings, in which 21 people lost their lives in what is still the largest unsolved murder in our history. The families do not believe that the approach set out by the government will discover the truth, and that only a public inquiry will do. Can we now have the meetings in order to hear the families' concerns direct and agree an approach that will command not just confidence, but will find the truth? Who bombed Birmingham?
Prime Minister.
Well, can I extend my deepest sympathies that remain with the bereaved and survivors of the horrific pub bombing in Birmingham in 1974. We do believe the most appropriate route is through the Independent Commission for Reconciliation and Information Recovery, but Honourable Friend has raised this issue directly with me, and of course I'll make sure that the relevant meeting is set up so that he and the families can put their point of view for us to consider.
Mr. Speaker, you in the Chamber will be well aware that I represent the biggest and most remote constituency in the UK. And I'm bound to say, Mr. Speaker, that in it, bank branches are becoming rarer than sightings of the Loch Ness Monster. We have no banks at all in the huge county of Sullivan. Now, we have legislation that provides for access to cash But what we don't have is legislation that provides for face-to-face banking services. So I'd be deeply grateful if the Prime Minister would ask the Treasury to meet with me to discuss how we might update the Financial Services and Markets Act to include some form of access to cash provision that would preserve face-to-face banking for my constituents and other remote areas.
Mr. Speaker, I know how important face-to-face banking is to local communities. As he knows, we're rolling out banking hubs. Decisions over location are taken independently, but they should be rolled out wherever there is a need for one. And of course, there's more to come. I will, in answer his question, make sure that he gets the meeting that he requests so that we can have a look at the proposal.
Abdul Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the Prime Minister is aware, November marks Islamophobia Awareness Month. This Labour government has shown a steadfast commitment to supporting Muslim communities, particularly through consulting on the definition of Islamophobia. Given anti-Muslim hate is at a record levels in the UK, can the Prime Minister outline the steps this government will take to tackle a rising level of racism, xenophobia against the Muslims in Britain?
Minister. Can I thank him for raising this important issue? He's always been a strong champion on this. Anti-Muslim hatred is abhorrent, Mr. Speaker, and has no place in our society. And the increase in incidents must be addressed. It's why we're increasing funding to protect mosques and Muslim faith schools across the country. It's why we've announced a new fund to monitor anti-Muslim hatred and support victims. And we continue to work on the definition of anti-Muslim hatred.
I would.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Everyone who cares about media independence and freedom will be relieved that Redbird have recognised that they cannot run the Telegraph. But there are serious concerns that they will burden the paper with unsustainable debt if the title is sold for less than £500 million. So will the Prime Minister step in to prevent this from happening and enable a sale at a lower price if necessary, without this toxic debt burden?
Prime Minister.
Well, he raises a serious issue. I'm not quite sure what he's asking the government to do. To step in and nationalise it, I don't think would be the right thing.
Whereas, Mr. Speaker, on the 5th of March at the dispatch box, the Prime Minister said these words: "We do recognise Cornish national minority status, not just the proud language, the history and the culture of Cornwall, but its bright future. Since then, I've repeatedly asked ministers for Cornwall's unique place on this island to be recognised through devolution. When the devolution bill comes back to the House next week, will the Prime Minister help me explicitly enshrine Cornish devolution and Cornish national minority status in that bill?"
Prime Minister.
Can I thank him for his question? Of course, he has raised this issue with me on a number of occasions already. He's a great champion for Cornwall. We will ensure that Cornwall's national minority status is safeguarded in any future devolution arrangements. We have provided £500,000 to support distinctive Cornish culture, including the Cornish language.
So David.
The Prime Minister knows that last week 9 four-star generals made plain that yesterday's Northern Ireland bill is doing harm to the British Army already. Most acute damage is being felt by the Special Air Service. It's already affecting their recruitment, their retention, their morale, and their operational effectiveness. As a result, lawyers acting for the SAS Regimental Association have sent a letter before action to the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland. I know of no precedent for this in the entire history of the British Army, and it's because it's so important. It reflects how important it is. So can I make a plea to the Prime Minister? Will he involve himself personally to make sure that 60, 70, 80-year-old soldiers who have carried out actions which most of us would view as heroic are not persecuted in the coming years? Because now it's a matter not of national security, but of national honour.
Can I thank him for his question and reassure him on the protections that he seeks for veterans, because it is a very important issue and he's continually and rightly raised it. There will be protection from repeat investigations, so the Commission doesn't go over old ground without compelling reasons. There will be protection from cold calling and protection in old age, so that elderly veterans are respected. And those who do contribute to the legacy process will have a right to anonymity, a right to stay at home to give evidence remotely, and a right to be heard through the Commission. That is the work that we're doing, and I'm happy to discuss it further with him.
To end on the subject, no doubt we can expect is Scotland's victory total correct.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When the Prime Minister next meets with the President of the United States, can he ask him if he knows any reasonably priced hotels near the MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, where the World Cup final is to be held? And as we are about to provide the biggest boost to whisky exports since our trade deal was signed, can he ask the Chancellor to gently consider excise duties next week so we Scots can continue celebrating at reasonable prices?
Prime Minister. I thank you for his question. On the question of whisky, it is important that we do everything we can to support whisky. I'm really pleased with the progress we're making with the United States and, of course, with India as well under the trade deal. I'll continue to discuss what more we can do with him.
That completes Prime Minister's questions.
Well, that does complete Prime Minister's questions. 1 week away from the budget, a lot of focus from the questions from the Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Badenoch, was about that. Let's bring in Tamara Cohen, who's with me now. So we weren't sure what you would go on, but yeah, the budget in advance.
Yeah, predictable mauling on the budget because it was just after PMQs last week that we got those reports in that the income tax rise, which it seemed Rachel Reeves had heavily hinted at, prepared the ground for, given this press conference in Downing Street saying tough decisions, everyone's going to have to contribute, was out the window. And is it a coincidence, given that it was on Wednesday last week, one of Kemi Badenoch's better PMQ's outings, that there was this extraordinary story about Wes Streeting preparing some sort of coup against the Prime Minister, which he denied, of course, but it was quite a difficult day for everyone at the top of the Labour Party. So she was asking why this U-turn. She slightly fumbled her first question on the timing of the budget, but she got going with it. Then she attacked Rachel Reeves about tax thresholds, pointing out that last budget in the autumn 2024, Rachel Reeves had said that these freezing of the thresholds at which you pay 20p and 40p, which the Conservatives had committed to till 2028, would hurt working people. She wouldn't carry on with it beyond that date. It's now widely expected that in order to find some of these billions she needs without an income tax rise, that is what she will do. So questions about that. There was a bit of a tit for tat on inflation, with the Conservatives saying it had doubled under Labour, Keir Starmer saying, wasn't it, 11% under the Conservatives. But I think he will be pleased that he sort of saw off some of those more obvious questions. There weren't any hostile questions from the Labour side, although one left-wing MP, John Trickett, stood up, wondered if he might go for wealth taxes, but he asked about levelling up. So I think we can see where the debate is going to be as we get towards the budget, just see how much the Labour Party and the country can stomach it afterwards.
Meanwhile, just before PMQs, Clive Lewis, the Norwich South MP, has given an interview and hinted that he would be willing to give up his seat. Who for?
Yes, extraordinary story. Clive Lewis had just given an interview to the BBC, in which he was asked if he would give up his seat so that Andy Burnham, of course, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, not an MP, but seemed to be widely putting himself about just before the Labour conference, criticising Keir Starmer. People thought he might run for the leadership. Clive Lewis was asked if he'd give up his seat for Andy Burnham, and he said, I have to consult with my wife and family, but in theory, yes. So quite extraordinary, really. I mean, it's not clear that Andy Burnham, who's based in Manchester, would want to run for Norwich South, or that would be very successful. It's a long way away. But the idea that an MP who's critical of Keir Starmer has been the first to call for him to go, is saying, I would facilitate Andy Burnham coming back to Parliament to launch a leadership bid, shows you where we are. I mean, there's lots of speculation in the newspapers that Keir Starmer's days as Prime Minister may be numbered. It's still a high bar. You'd still have, any contender would still need 80 MPs to launch a leadership bid, and many of the cooler heads think this isn't going to happen, certainly in the next few months. But interesting that this is being debated in public.
Interesting indeed. Tamara, thanks very much. Well, we're going to be talking more about this. You're watching Sky News. After the break, we're going to be talking to a panel of MPs about what they made of Prime Minister's questions.
She's preparing the ground to raise taxes.
the budget, I've got to do the things that I think are right. There are tax rises coming down the track.
You can't rule out further tax rises. It's exactly what she's going to have to do.
She'll be talking about that when it comes to the budget.
We'll be talking everything money as the Chancellor reveals what's in her budget.
This knows how it's going to play out if these tax rises are announced.
Go ahead, back white jacket.
Deborah Haynes from Sky News. He called you Daddy earlier.
No, he did it very affectionate. Daddy, you're my daddy. Thank you.
Leicester is on its knees. They've ripped the soul out of my factory and there's nothing left. It is eerily quiet.
It's constantly on the brink of capacity.
There's overcrowding. It's not a new thing.
It's rough.
There's nothing to hide. Why aren't international journalists allowed in?
Are you worried about escalation?
Of course I'm worried about escalation, which is why my focus is on de-escalation.
The region, I think, is on edge because they are anticipating a retaliation. Iran retaliates for the US attacks.
The founding principle of the alliance, that an attack on one is an attack on all.
Could Putin attack another NATO country within 5 years?
I'm David Blevins, one of Sky's US correspondents based in Washington, D.C. Connor, what did you say to the president? What did you say?
He's had a great meeting. He was a great man.
David Blevins from Sky News. Fire chiefs say that they're really stretched to the limit and running out of water. What have you got to say to that? Sky News in the UK. Why do you think the president should intervene on Iran?
I think Iran acquiring a nuclear weapon is an acute threat to the national security of the United States.
Free wherever you get your news.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live. I'm live in Jerusalem.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
The judge made it very clear that she could see no justifiable reason why Sakulas wasn't here facing British justice.
I promised I would get him justice.
Sky News gets the full story first. It's legal to let go. Set the speed and take the hands off. I'm Lisa Dowd and I'm Sky's Midlands correspondent.
Welcome back. Let's bring in our panel this afternoon to talk about Prime Minister's questions. The Labour MP, Chris Murray, the Conservative MP, David Simmons, and the Liberal Democrat MP, Wendy Chamberlain. Two of these MPs represent Scottish constituencies. We'll talk to them about the football as well in a short while.
Make this Christmas a jingle belter. From Aldi's well-nice appetisers to their proper naughty desserts. And some right crackers in between. There's everything you need to make sure your table spread slays. Go all fancy with Aldi, specially selected.
Came in and started doing some of the real fixing the economy after the Conservatives. So that we've been doing stuff like raising the minimum wage, improving worker standards, investment in the economy, nationalising the railways, the kind of stuff that you start with. The next budget, obviously the economic situation is what it is, but it was good news today about inflation going down. But obviously, no one's going to answer these questions a week in advance. We'll have to wait for the budget to see what it says.
A YouGov poll just out says 59% of people who voted Labour in the last election don't trust Rachel Reeves on the economy. Do you think she's the right person to be doing this?
The economy is the most important thing we've got to focus on, but we have to be really serious about two things. One is the impact on people's pay packet and the money in their pocket. The cost of living, trying to get bills down, that's that side of it, the sort of domestic side of it, but also the macroeconomic situation. We have high levels of debt. We have long-term uninvestment. We've had 14 years of austerity and it's deeply damaged public services and waiting lists and schools, and also had an impact on the cost of living. Remember, under Liz Truss, inflation was 11%, just under the Tories. It was 11%. It's now down to 3.6%. The fastest growing economy in the G7. This is the kind of stuff that will feed through and have an impact on people's daily lives.
David, it's all going swimmingly.
Well, Kemi's right to focus on the economy. We know a lot of things.
Does she know when the budget is?
We know the budget's going to be next week. And I think one of the big challenges is that the Chancellor keeps on giving a different steer to the economy about what she's going to do. So we've had a suggestion that the cast iron manifesto promises were going to be kept, then they were going to be broken, now they're going to be kept again. And it's having a real world impact. We know unemployment's gone up every single month since the government took office. Inflation's come down a little bit today, but is still double what it was when the Conservatives left office. Energy bills are up nearly 12% since the last election, and all of these things are really hitting people in the pocket. So that's the thing. We need the government to be focused on the economy, because I totally agree with Chris. It is the thing that most affects the standards of living of the British people, and we need to get it right.
Wendy, you're the MP for the Exxon plant that was mentioned in the
I'm not. I'm a Fife-based MP, but it's not actually my constituency. But you're right, I will have constituents that will be affected by yesterday's announcement.
Not far from you, but you're also somebody who's voted in favour of a windfall tax on these kind of businesses and a ban on new oil and gas licences. How do you square that? How do you say that to those living in your area when they're seeing a plant like this closing for those very reasons?
So what we're saying in relation to the windfall tax is we were very clear about the time-limited nature of it. But, you know, in terms of the announcement that was made yesterday, there's no doubt that ExxonMobil had not invested in that plant for some period of time. So that suggests that they did not see a long-term future there. But the chief executive of ExxonMobil in the UK was also very clear that the overall economic conditions, which frankly have been created by the current government, were part of their decision-making too, whether that be national insurance, whether that be some of the other measures. So I think there is a real challenge here for the government to deliver what Chris says that they are planning to deliver and actually see and feel it.
But he did specifically, Paul Greenhouse, the chair of ExxonMobil, did specifically mention the ban on new oil and gas licences and the windfall tax as the reasons that the plant was no longer sustainable.
Well, that's interesting because obviously in terms of what that plant operates and how it operates, everything that they're having is going for export. So I think there was a bit of I was at the statement last night, as you would expect, and there seemed to be a bit of a difference of opinion between the UK government and obviously what had been ongoing conversations, but as well as that, ExxonMobil saying that it was the overall economic conditions created by the government.
Tough time for your constituents, maybe hundreds of jobs being lost.
Well, as I say, it's not directly in my constituency, but you're absolutely right. Fife has seen huge challenges in terms of deindustrialisation, you know, the methyl docks, which are also in a neighbouring constituency to me. We've also seen other impacts. So yes, hugely challenging when major employers make decisions like this, which in some respects come out of the blue. So it's really important that the UK government and Scottish government work together. I didn't necessarily feel that during the statement last night.
Chris, can we ask you about Labour's week? Would you accept that it's, you know, the heavy hints about tax rise, then we hear it's not happening, have not been great for the Chancellor's credibility, and it's quite something that we're now already seeing MPs like Clive Lewis publicly going on TV suggesting that other people should run for leadership?
Well, I mean, I think there's always speculation in the run-up to a budget. That always happens. People like me always come on and say, we're not going to speculate about the budget. There has been a lot of speculation this time.
But that's coming from the government, though, isn't it? I mean, it feels like Rachel Reeves is thinking out loud a lot of the time.
Well, you do have to get the balance right of like talking to the country and about the economic realities we face. Communication is dead important in politics. You've got to have that conversation, take people with you without speculating ahead of the budget. But there have also been a range of really important things this week. You know, there was the immigration announcements by Shabana Mahmood. There are the stuff about Fife, as we've heard. The Clive Lewis thing, you know, obviously he said what he said. Kind of interesting thing to say, I suppose. It sounds a bit bizarre to me because Norwich is very far from Manchester. But
many MPs will agree with him that Andy Burnham should run for the leadership.
Norwich sounds far to Manchester for me. But the issue is that we're focused on the budget, getting the delivery through that will actually make the difference. Some stuff that's beginning to come through, like the economic figures we saw today in inflation, like the things like protecting the triple lock, like getting free childcare for families across Britain, like getting waiting lists down. That is the stuff that actually makes a difference in reality that people will feel. Obviously, everyone will talk about the budget in anticipation of it, but it's what the budget actually contains that will have the impact on people's lives.
It's going to have to be a strong budget, though, many would argue, to save Keir Starmer's skin, don't you think? You've got, you know, Andy Burnham lining up, Wes Streeting potentially lining up, and a lot of people have been saying this week after Shabana Mahmood's appearance in the Commons this week, hang on, where's she come from? She'd be a great successor to Keir Starmer.
It's got to be a really strong budget because it will have an impact on the economy and therefore on people's lives. That's what matters. Obviously, yes, we have a very strong team of cabinet ministers who on all fronts are coming out batting. You know, Shabana has made some really significant announcements this week. Wes is doing phenomenal work in getting waiting lists down. As a Scottish MP, it's incredibly bittersweet to look over the border and see the work that the NHS is happening in the NHS down here. Well, our waiting list in Scotland under the SNP remains sky high. But the job of government is to actually deliver the policy changes, which is what we're beginning to see. The budget next week will be central to that.
These income tax thresholds, people, you know, it's not an income tax rise like this many pounds in April, but people understand stealth taxes. They understand the next few years they get a pay rise. They're going to be paying a lot of it away in tax. How's that going to go down with your constituents?
Well, I'm not going to speculate on the budget, so don't even try and tempt me because I will try my best to resist. But what I would say in response to that is people also understand really clearly that 14 years of austerity did not work. All around us, I mean, think about what we've seen in the last couple of weeks. Prisons, like, completely collapsing. Challenges in the health service. The asylum system not working. You could go on. That's a consequence of austerity. Now, people understand that. Now, we cannot go back to that. And we also understand that because of the pandemic, because of mistakes made under the Conservatives, the economy is in a perilous place. Debt is very high. We need to challenge that, and the fiscal rules are really important to doing so. As I say, it's the micro stuff for people's lives and the macroeconomic stability that we need.
We're going to let David come in a second, but Wendy, you just wanted to put your 2
Yeah,
pence in.
I mean, what I would say, obviously, is income tax devolved, so it's obviously a matter for the Scottish Government. I found it very interesting that John Swinney was arguing very strongly that the UK Government should raise income tax because that would make them more progressive, as he wants to paint the Scottish Government. But by the same token, that same First Minister had signed the fiscal framework that would mean an income tax rise in other parts of the UK would actually mean a black hole in the Scottish Government budget. So from my perspective, I'm pleased that the Scottish Government isn't going to have that challenge, but I think it also speaks to how poorly managed the economy is in Scotland that we're in that situation.
David, 30-second defence of the Tories' economic
It's unusual
history.
for budget speculation to come from the Chancellor herself. We know this government has borrowed £100 billion this financial year alone. All of the indicators are going in the wrong direction. And even on waiting lists, the Public Accounts Committee today published a report saying there's been a small drop and that's now stalled. So the government isn't getting to grips with the issues that face the British people. We need a change of direction. I hope the Prime Minister will be encouraged to do that. Particularly, we need to get that continued rise in unemployment reversed as quickly as possible so people aren't losing their livelihoods.
OK, we've only got 30 seconds before we go on out, but luckily 2 Scottish MPs. Chris and Wendy, where were you last night? Were you watching the football? How excited are you both?
I didn't watch it last night because I was working and then my phone exploded, but I have caught so many clips and every WhatsApp group I'm in has gone wild. So 2 very happy Scottish people here today.
Wendy?
I was out for dinner but with a Scottish friend, and so we watched the last 10 minutes and saw the 4th goal. And yeah, my husband and son are huge football fans, and my son's actually studying in Birmingham. So he felt very lonely, but he was very, very happy.
Everyone's Scottish today.
Wendy, Chris and David, thank you all so much. And Tamara as well. Thanks very much to you for joining us. Coming up next, we're going to be hearing from the Home Secretary about police and crime commissioners. Stay with us. Hello, you're watching Sky News Today with me, Jane Secker. It's 1 o'clock. These are the headlines.
Are you flip-flopping over the budget, Prime Minister? Are your budget U-turns bad for Britain?
The Prime Minister refuses to rule out freezing the income tax threshold once again as next week's budget dominates PMQs.
Can he confirm today that he won't break another promise by freezing income tax thresholds?
Mr. Speaker, the budget is 1 week today and we will lay out our plans.
UK forces are deployed to track a Russian spy ship on the edge of UK waters north of Scotland.
My message to Russia and to Putin is this. We see you, we know what you're doing, and if the Yantar travels south this week, we are ready.
Food prices keep rising, but inflation falls for the first time in 7 months, in a sign it may have already peaked. And 3 years on, Sky News identifies a new suspect in the case of a father killed by a single punch at a stag do on the Greek island of Zante. Plus, massive celebrations for the Tartan Army. Scotland erupts as the men's team makes it to the World Cup for the first time in nearly 3 decades. Hello, good afternoon. This time next week, the Chancellor will be delivering her budget. But what she will announce dominated PMQs. That's just taken place in the Commons, with Kemi Badenoch attacking the government over its U-turn that won't now mean that the level of income tax increases. But she also tried, without success, to get Sir Keir Starmer to commit to raising the thresholds for the tax. Let's have a listen.
Can the Prime Minister tell us why his government is the first government in history to float increasing income tax rates only to then U-turn on it all after the actual budget?
I'll inform you the budget's actually next week rather than after the budget's only got 1 week to go. But I can tell her it'll be a Labour budget, Mr. Speaker, with Labour values. That means we will concentrate on cutting NHS waiting lists, cutting debt, and cutting the cost of living. And because of the decisions we've already made, inflation is down this morning. The Bank of England have upgraded growth. We've got a record £230 billion of investment into this country under this government.
Mr. Speaker, he says the budget is next week, but we read all about it in the papers. This is the first budget to unravel before it's even been delivered. The Chancellor's cluelessness, I'm afraid, is damaging the economy now. The Prime Minister needs to end this shambles. So can he confirm today that he won't break another promise by freezing income tax thresholds?
Mr. Speaker, the budget is 1 week today and we will lay out our plans. But what we won't do, Mr. Speaker, I've said what we will do in terms of protecting the NHS and public services. What we won't do is inflict austerity on the country as they did.
Well, let's return to Tamara, who is in the studio here. So, Tamara, hot speculation with a week to go. I mean, there has been so much trailed about this budget. It's difficult to know how we're going to navigate the next week.
Yeah, it's not surprising that Kemi Badenoch went for that, although she slightly fluffed the wording of the question. We got the idea, which is that this has been an extraordinary lead up to a budget. It used to be that Chancellor said nothing in the run up to a budget. They said we can't speculate. We had Rachel Reeves giving a Downing Street press conference at the crack of dawn a couple of weeks ago, saying there's going to be tough decisions. We will all have to contribute. She then gave further interviews in the days after that, saying the alternative to tax rises would be austerity. Could it have been clearer what she was hinting at? And then after an extraordinary day last week in which Downing Street sources briefed that the Prime Minister would fight any leadership challenge coming his way, with suggestions in some newspapers that such a leadership challenge may come from the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, which was denied all round. I saw him nodding very prominently next to the Prime Minister there. Then suddenly we hear in the newspapers, again, well-sourced reports that the income tax rise that had been discussed is now off the table and they will have to find the money in other ways instead. So Kemi Badenoch has a point in saying this has been quite an extraordinary run-up to the budget with all this back and forth, although the government insists it doesn't come from them. And then she went on the question, which I think a lot of people will have, if it's not going to be an income tax rise, and we know the Chancellor thinks there's a big black hole to be filled, will it be the tax thresholds? The Conservatives froze those tax thresholds, the salary level at which you pay the 20p and 40p rates, so more people are dragged into each one until 2028. Rachel Reeves had said, and Kemi Badenoch quoted her there in the budget a year ago, that this is a tax on working people that makes life hard for working people. She wouldn't carry on with them. Now the suggestions are that she will carry on with them for another couple of years because it raises about £7 billion a year, and she does need that money along with other tax rises in other areas that have been suggested. There's a suggestion of a mansion tax on high-value properties this morning. So, look, this is the usual speculation about what taxes may be risen, but with this added backdrop that the government has hinted so heavily in certain directions.
So meanwhile, at this time last week, we were all speculating wildly about Wes Streeting and about briefings from Number 10 about, was he trying to muscle in on the Prime Minister? Shabana Mahmood's put in a barnstorming performance this week in the Commons, and now we're hearing that Clive Lewis may be willing to give up his seat for Andy Burnham. It seems like the problems for the Prime Minister are just increasing.
Yeah, it's been an extraordinary amount of speculation that Keir Starmer may not, despite winning this stonking majority just 16 months ago, serve a full term as Prime Minister, because his own popularity and that of the Labour government are at record lows. They're really unpopular, and some of these concerns have been about the Prime Minister's own performance. Now, Wes Streeting said he'd been kneecapped by people in Number 10 and had no intention of standing against the Prime Minister. There had been suggestions the budget might land so badly if they rose income tax, which would be for the first time since the 1970s, that might be the moment. If that is not happening, now there's talk about whether it's going to be after the local elections and the Scotland and Wales elections in May, in which the Conservatives and Labour are projected to do badly. Of course, this is only talk. It may not happen. You need 80 MPs to launch a leadership contest, and once that's out of the bottle, you've got to consider who might run in it and also how they would be different and turn things around. So, cooler heads say this may all not happen, and it may not happen soon. But we've had one MP, Clive Lewis, no fan of the Prime Minister, an MP on the left of the Labour Party, who's already said that Keir Starmer should go, was asked on a TV programme this lunchtime if he'd give up his seat, which is in Norwich South, for Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, to make a return to Parliament and oust the Prime Minister. Clive Lewis said, perhaps jokingly, he discussed with his wife, but in theory, yes. So those who feel that Andy Burnham might represent a more left-wing part of the party and make different choices. He certainly spent a couple of weeks before the Labour Party conference making public suggestions of things that Keir Starmer could do better. So that's already out of the bag, and I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot of that from Conservative and other critics of the Prime Minister in the coming days.
Okay, Tamara, thanks very much. Just frantically Googling how long it takes to get a train from Manchester to Norwich.
I mean, a long time, and Andy Burnham has no connection really to that area, so I think it would be a long shot, but I think it's more the sort of suggestion of it.
Yeah, nearly 5 hours, 2 changes, it says on the app.
Might not be a tempting prospect.
Yeah. Okay, thanks very much, Tamara. Now, the Defence Secretary has warned of what he called a new era of threat from Russia, as he told reporters that a Russian spy ship, the Yantar, is currently north of Scotland. Mr. Healy said it is the second time this year that the Yantar has deployed to UK waters, and that crew members on the ship had directed lasers at British pilots to distract them. He warned Russia that Britain is ready to respond with military options if the ship heads south. Our defence and security analyst, Michael Clark, has more on the capabilities of the vessel. He was talking to my colleague Gareth Barlow a little earlier.
It's been in lots of places. Again, it hovers over cables. It was in Brazil a few years ago. What was it doing? Hovering over cables. The only time I think that it's performed something that wasn't obviously spying is it went to help the Argentinian Navy when they lost a submarine. And I think it was an act of assistance. But whenever it's been spotted in the Mediterranean, off the Syrian coast, around Cyprus, certainly anywhere in northern waters, it always seems to be hovering over cables or pipelines. And I was just checking now, I was talking before about the fact it can launch submersibles, and I just checked out the depth that they are recorded as being able to go to, and it looks as if the submersibles that it can launch will go to about 6,000 metres, 20,000 feet. That's pretty deep, and that means that anywhere on the continental shelf, not in the deep Atlantic, the mid-Atlantic, where the nuclear submarines lurk, as it were, but anywhere around the continental shelf, around our North European waters, means that the submersibles can get down there. And they could be surveying cables and pipelines, or they could be laying charges against cables and pipelines. And there's a difference. I mean, if cables are damaged and destroyed, and that happens quite a lot, actually, by accident as well, they can be replaced.
Anchors being dragged across.
Exactly, deliberately or not. Yeah. And cables do get damaged and destroyed, but there are so many cables that there's usually a way round. It's just a nuisance, but you reroute things. Pipelines are different because pipelines don't often have backup. So if a pipeline is destroyed or damaged, then somebody's got to get down there and repair it with all the damage it does in the meantime. So cables may not be so difficult, but then you can be tapping into cables so that the ability to literally tap the cables and absorb all the traffic, that's a significant intelligence boost in itself. Damage to pipelines is more serious. But the Yantar, it goes with the Russian Northern Fleet. They've got another ship with their Pacific Fleet, and they're reportedly building another one, third one. They don't have many of these ships. They're very, very specialised. And although it doesn't look anything, no great shakes, it is full of very sophisticated equipment. So the Russians only deploy one in the northern waters, one in the Pacific waters, a third one apparently building. Don't know what they'll do with that. But it's a nuisance ship as far as NATO is concerned. And it's tracked pretty consistently wherever it goes.
It's probably got greater capability and reliability than some of the Russian actual naval vessels do. They've
the Kuznetsov. Yeah, I mean the Russian carrier, the Kuznetsov, it always goes with tugs because it breaks down so often, and it leaves plumes of smoke everywhere it goes.
Well, that was Michael Clark talking a little bit earlier, because right now, as you can see on your screen, he is taking part in a live Q&A. If you want to submit questions or listen in, you can just scan the QR code now. Now, staying with the Russian threat, and Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says 9 people have been killed and dozens hurt in a Russian attack on the western city of Ternopil overnight. Another 40 were injured in Kharkiv, according to the regional governor, as firefighters put out the blaze. Ukraine says Russia launched 470 drone strikes and 48 missiles, hitting residential buildings, including a 9-story block of flats, and people remain trapped under the rubble. Mr. Zelensky's in the Turkish capital, Ankara, today for talks with the country's president, Tayyip Erdogan. A man charged over the train stabbings in Huntingdon in Cambridgeshire earlier this month has been charged with 7 further offences. 32-year-old Anthony Williams will appear at Peterborough Magistrates Court this afternoon. Our correspondent Adele Robbins has the details.
Following on from the Huntingdon train stabbings on November the 1st, when multiple people were attacked on the Doncaster to London high-speed service, 32-year-old Anthony Williams, as you said, from Langford Road in Peterborough, will appear before Peterborough magistrates later today on those new charges. He is charged with further offences, including the attempted murder of a 14-year-old boy, a 22-year-old man, in separate incidents, and also grievous bodily harm of a 28-year-old man in the city as well. All of those the day before the train stabbings happened on October the 31st. The new charges are listed as follows: affray and possession of a bladed article in connection to an incident at Ritzy Barbers in Peterborough on the 31st of October, theft of knives from Asda Supermarket in Stevenage on the 31st of October, common assault of a 31-year-old man on board a train travelling between Hitchin and Biggleswade on the 31st of October, and attempted murder of a 14-year-old boy at Henry Penn Walk in Peterborough, attempted grievous bodily harm of a 28-year-old man at Vearson Platts in Peterborough, and attempted murder of a 22-year-old man near Pleasure Fair Meadow Road, also in the city, on the 31st of October. British Transport Police have been carrying out a wider investigation into Anthony Williams and also events leading up to the attack on that train service on November the 1st. Those offences are the new ones today, also in addition to the charges that he's already facing in relation to the train stabbings, including 10 counts of attempted murder over that incident that led to 11 people being treated at hospital. We've heard from the Deputy Chief Constable of British Transport Police, who said in a statement that they described these charges as significant, and also said that they have been looking into the awful incident at Huntingdon, but focusing on other offences that have been previously reported to them. And they've also stressed the importance to the public of not saying or publishing anything that might jeopardise or prejudice ongoing investigations or proceedings.
Adele Robinson there. Now, some of the day's other news now. The former US Treasury Secretary, Larry Summers, has resigned from the OpenAI board. His departure comes after a release of emails showed that he maintained a friendly relationship with Jeffrey Epstein long after the financier pleaded guilty to soliciting prostitution from an underage girl in 2008. He wrote in a statement on Monday, "I take full responsibility for my misguided decision to continue communicating with Mr. Epstein." The Liberal Democrat leader, Ed Davey, has asked the Prime Minister to intervene after a huge mountain of rubbish was dumped in Oxfordshire. A criminal investigation is underway to identify those responsible for the fly tipping in Cherwell, but the cost of clearing the site is thought to be more than the entire annual budget of the local council.
Next to the River Cherwell in Oxfordshire, a field is now covered in an enormous mound of rubbish, 150 metres long and up to 12 metres high. The water is now lapping against the waste and carrying it into the river. It's just one of many sites, Mr. Speaker, where organised criminal gangs are illegally dumping their waste onto our countryside and getting away with it. This is a shocking environmental emergency. So will he instruct the Environment Agency to clean it up now?
Firstly, these are utterly appalling scenes, utterly appalling. A criminal investigation, as you know, is underway, and specialist officers are tracking down those responsible. The Environmental Agency, in answer to his question, will use all available powers to make sure that the perpetrators cover the cost of the clean-up, which must now follow. We have boosted the Environment Agency's budget for tackling waste crime by 50%, given councils new powers to seize and crush fly tippers' vehicles, and lawbreakers can now face up to 5 years in jail.
A 53-year-old man has been arrested in Florida over the death of a missing woman from the UK. Dwayne Hall from Ocala in Florida was arrested on first-degree murder and kidnapping charges. The arrests follow discovery and identification of a woman's remains in Marion County, Florida, less than 1 week after she was reported missing. The mother of Harry Dunn, whose death led to a transatlantic diplomatic row, has been presented with her MBE at Windsor Castle. Charlotte Charles has been awarded the honour for outstanding services to road safety. Harry was struck while he was on his motorbike near RAF Croughton in Northamptonshire by Ansa Coulis, an employee of the United States intelligence community who was driving on the wrong side of the road. UK inflation has eased slightly, falling for the first time in 7 months in a move that's leaving economists confident we have passed the peak in prices. Latest data for the Office for National Statistics show the figure fell to 3.6% in October, which was, as experts had been predicting, that is down from 3.8%, which is where it stood in September, and analysts are now expecting it to continue to fall. The Office for National Statistics said lower energy price rises were the main reason for the dip, with a monthly rise of 0.9% for gas compared to almost 8% a year ago. Electricity prices risen at 2.4% compared to almost 12% this time last year. Cheaper hotel prices also contributed to the overall inflation fall. However, those dips were offset by the continued increase in the price of food and non-alcoholic drinks, which are now 4.9% higher than they were this year. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, welcomed the news, but said the government recognises that inflation is still a big burden on families.
It's welcome that inflation has fallen from 3.8 to 3.6% in this month's data. but I recognise that inflation, the cost of living, is still a big burden on families right across the country, and that's why in the budget next week I'll be taking targeted action to bring down inflation to address the cost of living.
And food price inflation on the up. It's been several months now since increases to employers' national insurance contributions have been enforced. The evidence is quite clear. It's caused food prices to rise and it's hurt businesses' willingness to hire. Did you anticipate that this might happen, and do you regret that decision at all?
Food prices fell last month and they have risen this month. But I do recognise that there's more that we need to do to tackle the cost of living challenges. And that's why one of the 3 priorities in my budget next week is to tackle the cost of living, as well as to cut NHS waiting lists and cut government debt. There are 300,000 more jobs in the economy than there were at the beginning of this year. But of course, I want also to do more to help people back into work, which is why at the budget we'll be setting out more details of our youth guarantee to ensure that young people are in education, employment or training.
And just finally, there's been an unusual amount of market volatility in the run-up to the budget. Do you accept that this government's mixed messages on tax might have played a role in that? Is this a sensible way of handling market-sensitive information?
Well, leaks are not acceptable, but people only have to wait a week now until I deliver my budget on Wednesday the 26th of November. The priorities of that budget will be to tackle the cost of living, to get NHS waiting lists down and to reduce the national debt. Those are the priorities of the British people, and they'll be my priorities as I go into the budget next week.
Well, our business and economics correspondent Gurpreet Nawan has the latest.
There's quite a lot underneath the surface, and there's a bit of a sting in the tail, actually, especially when it comes to food price inflation, which is relevant because I am in a Tesco in West London. Prices here are considerably higher, the price level, considerably higher than they were a few years ago. We know that food prices in particular, we've been on a big journey with food prices. They rose in the inflationary crisis that we had post-lockdown after the war in Ukraine. And since March, they've been on the up considerably, largely driven by the Chancellor's own policy on national insurance contribution increases. Supermarkets have been passing that on to consumers, and we've had data out today showing that food price inflation was up again by 4.9% in October. That was up from 4.5% the previous month. It actually fell the previous month. So as I said, a bit of a sting in the tail there, and policymakers will be really nervous about food price inflation, actually, because of all the types of inflation, food price inflation, when your grocery shop goes up, is the one that makes you really look around and go, oops, wow, like food prices and inflation in general is going up, the cost of living is going up, I better go to my employer and try and get a pay rise. And policymakers are anxious about that because it can fuel something called a wage price spiral, whereby prices are going up and then you go to your boss and ask for a pay rise and then prices go up even higher. So although the overall data today, headline rate of inflation falling to 3.6%, should give the Bank of England more confidence to cut interest rates next month, particularly as there are other underlying data points here on services inflation, which is a data point the bank looks really closely at. It gives you a sense of how underlying inflation is doing in the economy. That fell faster than expected. So we're anticipating that the bank will cut interest rates next month, but there are still warning signs within this data, particularly around food, that policymakers will have in the back of their mind before making their decision. And of course, all of this has added salience in the run-up to the budget. The Chancellor will be looking to grab on to any good news that she can find. She'll be pointing to falling inflation, but she might have to wait until after the budget for an interest rate cut.
Gurpreet Nawan there. This is Sky News Today. Coming up, more denials from China about accusations of spying from the UK government.
A killing on a stag do on a Greek party island. Sky News investigates.
The sound that I heard will never leave me.
The 2 assailants walk off at first and then run off up the street.
The people are walking free for 6 years that have done this. That doesn't make any sense.
Whoever that person is, there's a big problem that night.
Even though police had a video showing them exactly what happened, we will reveal how they made the simplest of blunders. Is that you? Is that you?
China has hit back at accusations it's using spies posing as headhunters to try to steal intelligence from the UK. A spokesperson for the Chinese government told Sky News the country has no interest in collecting information from the UK's parliament. They were talking to our Asia correspondent, Helen Ann Smith, who sent this update.
Despite the fact it's been denied, these types of incidents are damaging for the UK-China relationship. And I think this one will be so, particularly as it comes as part of a bit of a spate of these type of instances recently. Just to bring viewers up to date, the accusations, according to MI5, is that there was 2 LinkedIn accounts. And these 2 LinkedIn accounts, they say, were posing as headhunters, contacting influential people in public life, politicians, journalists, people who work in Parliament and so forth, and essentially trying to recruit them, trying to befriend them, asking them, according to job adverts, to be sort of experts or insiders or consultants. Perhaps, it seems, to potentially give information to the Chinese state through a series of others, perhaps. The Chinese government, as always, as is according to their playbook, absolutely vigorously deny this. But look, I think it's complicated given how many accusations like this there have been in recent months. And I put that exact point to Mao Ning, who is the spokesperson for the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, just an hour or so ago. Have a listen to what she said. MI5 issued an official warning to British politicians about 2 LinkedIn accounts that it said were posing as headhunters, but were in fact operating on behalf of the Chinese Ministry of State Security. It's just the latest in a real string of similar accusations about alleged Chinese spying in the UK. Given that it's pretty widely acknowledged that all countries spy on each other, and given the sheer regularity of these type of accusations recently, is it not quite far-fetched and perhaps even more damaging to bilateral relations between China and the UK for China to continue to maintain that the UK are just making it all up? Thank you.
China has repeatedly made clear its solemn position on this matter. We firmly oppose such unfounded allegations and the exaggerated portrayal and sensationalism that project one's own biases onto others. Judgments based on erroneous information will only lead astray. China never interferes in the internal affairs of other countries, nor does it have any interest in gathering so-called intelligence on the British Parliament.
Look, it is China's playbook to just completely deny accusations like this when they come around. But it is, of course, a pretty common understanding that China has a very sophisticated surveillance operation. Just here as journalists in Beijing, it is not unnormal to hear of diplomats and former diplomats, people who used to work here who have been approached by the Ministry of State Security. We hear about that all the time, actually. So, look, there's very likely that there might be some potential truth to these types of allegations. However, I think the significance really in this incident, it is about the thorniness that it reintroduces to the British-Chinese diplomatic relationship. There has been quite a few of these accusations in recent months, not least a big case last month that actually collapsed because the British government wouldn't supply sort of written evidence to say that China was officially an enemy or officially a threat to national security. And that was a big embarrassment and lots of criticism to the government about the fact that they were unwilling to take that step in order to sort of to pursue those prosecutions. So perhaps a better attempt from the British government to look strong on the China issue ahead of other big decisions coming up, such as a very controversial new embassy for China in London, decision on that expected in the next few weeks. But look, the Chinese don't take enormously kindly to these type of public accusations, and they don't like their bilateral relations to be played out in very public ways. So I think it does potentially bode for a thorny few months.
Now let's go look at the weather. Chilly out there, isn't it? Low pressure to the east of the country and high pressure to the west is forcing a strong northerly flow with Arctic air bringing wintry showers, low temperatures and ice. Yellow weather warnings for snow and ice are quite widespread, covering Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England, Wales and the southwest. But an amber warning is in place for the North Yorkshire moors on Thursday. 15 to 25 centimetres of accumulated snow is expected, in brisk northerly winds, which are likely to give blizzard conditions at times. This afternoon, inland areas, bright, sunny and cold, temperatures unlikely to exceed 4 or 5 Celsius. And there'll be a significant wind chill along coastal areas, along with showers, and some of those will turn wintry at times. Snow showers will continue over Scotland. It'll be a very cold night with temperatures close to or even below freezing, even in the towns and cities. Rural areas will see even lower values, and there'll be a widespread and severe frost with a risk of icy stretches on untreated roads and pavements. Thursday is looking pretty similar. You're watching Sky News Today. Coming up, a special report on the case of a father killed by a single punch at a stag do on the Greek island of Zante. Welcome back. A Sky News investigation has identified a new suspect in the case of Matt Jeffrey, a married father of one who was killed by a single punch while on a stag do in Zante. Two men were arrested and convicted over the 35-year-old's death on the Greek island in 2019. But now, 6 years on, we've identified another man who has potentially evaded justice for years. Our home editor, Jason Farrell, has the story.
This is seconds before a fatal punch caught on camera. The victim, 35-year-old Matt Jeffrey, an AA man, husband, father. His family have waited 6 years for justice.
I know a lot of people say it, you know, when people die, how amazing people were, but he genuinely was like the most amazing human being. He really was, you know, one in a million.
It happened in May 2019 on a nightclub strip on the party island of Zakynthos, known as Zante. Matt was here on a stag do with his friends from Somerset. He wasn't initially involved when a fight broke out in a club called Sizzle, all captured on CCTV. Friends on the stag talked me through it.
Yeah, that's you in the... I'm here with a white sleeveless vest.
Yeah.
I then see this guy jump over my shoulder who's working behind the bar. So I follow him in to try and mediate and to pull people apart.
Matt's group leaves quickly, but the others, a group from Essex, seen with their shirts off, follow them out. We've obtained video footage from someone who was outside the club.
The footage, which was filmed exactly at this spot, we're not showing in full at the request of Matt Jeffrey's family. But in it, he's clearly stood with his arms open wide, not posing a threat. When he is slapped in the side of the head by someone standing here, and then almost immediately punched in the face, falling back, and then the two assailants walk off at first and then run off up the street.
I didn't see the punch. I saw as Matt hit the deck. The sound that I heard will never leave me.
Matt was airlifted to hospital but died of multiple head injuries.
You don't realise how fragile life is until something like this happens. Like, 1 minute someone's there, next minute they're gone, and it only takes one punch.
Two men, Luke Brownston and Adam O'Brien, were charged, released on bail, and 4 years later convicted of manslaughter and given 12 and 10-year sentences. But they didn't turn up to court in Patras on the Greek mainland. Only after we began investigating 6 years after the attack did Greek police issue extradition papers for one of the men, Luke Brownston, the man who threw the fatal punch. He was then arrested in Essex. But what of Adam O'Brien? Well, he had claimed in a court statement that he didn't hit Mr. Jeffrey. It was another man in his group called William Locke. We've seen a photo in Sizzle, date stamped on the night of the attack. In it, Adam O'Brien is wearing dark shorts, even though the police identify him as this man wearing white shorts. The shot inside Sizzle shows William Locke wearing white shorts. And there's another photo of him from the trip wearing them again. There's a thin black piping down the side. They look like the ones worn by the assailant in the video. Extradition lawyer Karen Todner now represents Adam O'Brien.
I think the main failing was that the Greek police failed to take witness statements from any of the group. By not taking those witness statements, they allowed William Locke to leave. And the fact is, they got the wrong guy.
But this is Mr. Locke, according to witness statements from 4 of the Essex group gathered by Karen Todner. And there's a facial mapping expert report where the man in the video is called Person Y and compared to photos of Mr. Locke. It finds skin tone, build, forehead height and slope all similar. Brow ridge, eyebrows, nose root, similar. It says, I conclude there is strong support to the contention that Person Y and Mr. Locke are the same person. But with O'Brien, he says there is strong support that Person Y and Mr. O'Brien are not the same person. This evidence was rejected on appeal last December, although Adam O'Brien's sentence was downgraded, and it does raise questions for the family.
We wouldn't want an innocent person to go to prison for a crime they haven't done. And we can only hope that if they've got the ability to clear his name, then they can get the correct person convicted for assisting in this crime.
William Locke lives in Colchester and has never been questioned about the attack. We've come to Colchester really just to give this to William Locke and put to him these allegations that he is this man.
I want to ask you about the death of Matt Jeffrey. Were you involved in the fatal assault of Matt Jeffrey, Mr. Locke? Can I give you this? Mr. Locke, can I give you this? Is that you? Is that you? Were you involved in the assault of Matt Jeffrey? Mr. Locke, can you take this?
We've approached police in Zante with our evidence and had no response. Luke Brownston has not responded and awaits extradition proceedings.
Can I give you this?
Adam O'Brien hasn't spoken to us, but his parents in a statement insisted he was wrongly convicted while expressing sympathy to the Jeffrey family.
Everyone needed a Matt Jeffrey because he was just so kind. He was hardworking. He loved me and the girls, his family, his friends.
We have pictures in our houses. We have pictures in our head, of him, fun-loving Matt and his smile. Which brings us back to how badly he's missed. For something so unnecessary.
Jason Farrell, Sky News.
And you can see a special programme from Jason right here on Sky News on Friday night at 9 o'clock. Do join us for that, or you can scan the QR code on your screen to watch right now. Now, we are sorry for what happened and lessons must be learned. These are the messages from a council leader today after Sky News investigated the failings that occurred before the death of a young woman who'd been under his organisation's care. Nonita Grabovskaya was just 18 when she took her own life after being let down by everyone who was supposed to look after her, particularly her corporate parent, Barnard Council. A warning, this report from Sky's Nick Martin contains references to suicide.
In December 2023, 18-year-old Nonita Grabovskaya took her own life. She was in the care of Barnard Council, her corporate parent. A coroner found that failings in her care contributed to her death. Now the council's leader has agreed to answer questions about the case, and another 2 care leavers who it's emerged died within a year of Nonita. Is the council sorry for failing Nonita in such a catastrophic way?
I think with any tragedy, there is an element of failure across different agencies and so on. And the important thing is learning from it.
I just want to know, are you sorry? Is the council sorry for the way that it failed Nonita so catastrophically?
We're sorry for what happened. We do realise there have been some failures by different agencies, including the council. It shouldn't happen, and we need to learn about that.
Do you think Barnard fulfilled its corporate parenting duties towards these things?
Each one is a tragedy. I mean, there might be times...
That's not what I asked.
No,
do you think that the council fulfilled its corporate parenting duties?
You can ask the question, but the answers are mine. Each one's a tragedy.
I'm just asking whether...
Do you think they fulfil?
Did you fulfil your corporate parenting duties to these 3 young people? It's a very simple question.
If they would be alive if we did. I have a special responsibility as leader of the council. Obviously, if you can turn the clock back, you wouldn't want this to happen. But if we don't learn the lessons, it's even more of a waste. It's a waste anyway. It's a waste of a young life.
It's been 2 years since Nonita's death, but the council has been criticised for keeping the details of her case to only a small group of councillors and senior officers. Should there be more scrutiny within the council?
Yes, I think that is possibly one of the lessons learned, certainly about better scrutiny and more intense scrutiny.
This looks like a council that doesn't want people poring over its failures. This is a council that is being accused of a culture of silence and cover-up. And it looks exactly like that. Do you accept that?
No, I don't even see how you can reach that conclusion. I honestly don't. We do need to look at what we did, what we could have done better, and take in more responsibility.
In the weeks leading up to her death, crucial support was taken from Nonita as she left care. She was completely in the dark about where she was going to live. She had no mental health support.
And
she was all alone in December, and she took her own life, and you were responsible for her care.
Yes, and it failed. And obviously, that is quite happy to say, I'm sorry it failed.
Anybody watching this, and specifically if they live in Barnet, how can they have confidence in this council's ability to look after vulnerable children when 3 vulnerable young people have died in a year? They must look at this council and go, there's a problem here.
And that's why, for me, learning the lessons is the real key.
We hear that a lot. We hear learning lessons a lot. Your opposition councillors, not surprisingly, say, well, you're the leader, you should resign. Do you see a reason to resign?
No, I see a reason to learn the lessons and ensure that we make sure we have a better system that includes councillors more often.
So three care leaver deaths in a year is not a reason to resign?
No, I see, but I am best placed to make sure that the right lessons are learned and we start making a bigger difference to young people's lives and give them the support we can.
And if you've been affected by any of the issues raised in this story, you can contact the Samaritans on 116 123 or joe@samaritans.org. Plus, if you want to know more about the story, just scan the QR code on your screen right now where you can watch Nick Martin's full documentary about Nonita, a girl unseen. Some of the day's other news now, and the Foreign Office says it's supporting the family of a British woman who was among 5 people found dead following a snowstorm in Chile. The bodies were discovered on Tuesday in the tourist spot of Torres del Paine National Park in southern Chile. The victims include the British woman, 2 Germans and 2 Mexican citizens. Global experts are warning that ultra-processed foods are leading to a cause of
up in our zone.
I want to light fires in people's lives, and that is still one of my core mandates for all of my businesses.
Justin Tuck.
I tell all of my friends that play in leagues now, make these relationships now while you're hot. Don't wait till you're like you're the 12th year in and you're just hanging on.
Stay tuned. You won't want to miss it.
Technology is embedded in every aspect of our lives.
And laying the foundation for the future.
From finance to defense, AI to entertainment.
And from the road to the stars. Bloomberg brings you the latest stories of the people and companies pushing the tech sector to new frontiers.
And the politics that shape global tech markets.
I'm Caroline Hyde in New York.
And I'm Ed Ludlow in San Francisco.
Watch Bloomberg Tech every weekday.
Only on Bloomberg Television.
Good morning. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Welcome back to the opening trade. Watch Bloomberg Tech. This is the Asia Trade.
This is Wall Street Week. Welcome to Balance of Power.
This is Bloomberg Television. It's a multi-trillion-dollar industry. We'll show you what's happening in ETFs like no one else. ETF IQ, only on Bloomberg.
The Federal Reserve, just like markets and economists, are going to have to think a little bit further out into what Q1 and Q2 are going to look like. And probably that tells us that employment will become slightly more problematic, not dramatically, and inflation will continue to rise. It's a continuation of that stagflation light type of environment.
Francis Donald of RBC, Stag Light. Sounds like a really bad drink, doesn't it? Remember the first time I heard that, Stag Light. But ultimately, that's what she's looking for in 26.
It's a stag dance where you don't get a dance, essentially, right? I mean, it's sort of, yeah, but this is kind of where we're at. But we don't get the CPI data, so we can't even know how stag it is, just light.
Stag Light, a terrible night out. Equity futures on the S&P, positive by